In today's class, we are going to parameter passing. In already we have discussed about function. So the objective of this today's class will be we are going to give a recap the previous topic that we discussed in the class. Class will be discussing parameter passing to functions. So while discussing parameter passing, is about parameter, formal parameter. No, in the previous class we had talked about standard functions defined C and about user-defined function, how to define function, prototype declaration of function. Talked about the advantages of functions. Now, what is parameter passing? Parameter, formal parameter. The variable declared in the function prototype or the definition is form. And the values that are passed to the call function from the main function is actually. Therefore, you remember, very important, the call functions parameter, calling statement, calling functions parameter, and the prototype parameters are termed as formal parameters. Whereas the parameter which will be writing while calling the function, that is termed as the actual argument. Actual arguments and the formal arguments match both in terms of number of arguments, type, and the order in which the programming function arguments are also known as parameters. The variables that will receive the data sent by the calling program. These arguments serve as input data to the function to carry out the specified task. Now, for example, there are different ways in which parameter data can be passed into and out of methods. And let us assume that a function B called from another function A. Means A is calling the function B. In this case, A will be termed as caller function and B is called as called function or callee function. Also, the arguments which A sends to B called the actual arguments and the parameter of B are called the formal arguments. So, as you got to know here that A is going to call the function. In A, we are going to write down the calling statement, and the parameter which we'll be writing in calling statements are the actual arguments. Whereas when you'll be writing the body of your function B, there will be terming those parameters as formula. For example, here, see the example that is being demonstrated in the presentation. Here you see inside the main, the column, function name and the arguments value. So, the arguments value are the actual arguments inside the column and the main function. Writing the arguments, those are the formal arguments. And this argument should match both in terms of number, type, and order in which. Now, this is another example, ways of passing. Suppose have a function print xy and another swap function. There are two functions. Inside the swap, I am calling print function AB. So printf AB is here. Swap is the caller function, and print AB is the calling the function. So print AB, A comma B will be here. Here actual arguments, and when you will be writing printf xy, this will be the formal argument. And there are two ways in which we are going to pass these arguments, which we are going to study in this subsequent classes. One is passed by value, another is passed by reference. Now, what is passed by value is this method uses in mode. Therefore, the changes made to the formal parameter inside the function do not get transmitted back to the caller. Any modification to the formal parameter variable inside the call or method affects only the separate storage location and will not be reflected in parameter calling in. For example, here, now suppose we have a function func, okay, and having parameter now1, 2, and there is a calling statement keep func val1, val2. Suppose val1 value we are giving as 10, 12. So when we pass this value, so our parameter, when we pass this value inside the body, which we are calling as num1 and num2 are going to take a copy of this val1 value. So this num1 and num2 are different location and val1 and val2 are different location. Therefore, num1 and num2 is not actually accessing the val1 val2 location. So however, it is taking a copy of 10, 12, and although therefore inside the function, I should instead of x for 40, y 50, I should have written num1 14. Although if I replace num1 and num2 by 40, 50, but the original value will be same as 10. It is not going to be reflected, so it is the same. So therefore, although we are making changes, it is getting the changes happens in the copy, not the actual. Like another example that we are writing, another we are writing here, like there is a function main. At the main, I am calling the function func where I am passing x comma y, where x is 5, y is 7. And when we call, this is a calling statement. So x comma y is a or actual parameter. When we call this function, the value is getting, the control will go to the function body, and there I am changing the value. So a is going to take x value, b is going to take copy of the y value, and we are making some changes. A equal to a plus b, and that has been printed here as b. So this a comma, there is change is happening inside the function, but this original value x and y, it will be in 5 and 7. Although I'm making changes inside the body, but it is not reflected in the original and value. If we call by value. But there is another way of passing parameter, that is called call by reference. In this, this technique uses in-out matrix. The changes made to the formal parameter uh, do get transmitted back to the call if we follow this technique. So any changes to the formal parameter are reflected in the actual parameter calling environment as formal parameter receives a reference to actual data. So this method is called pass by reference. For example, if we take a function like here inside the main, the function, we are taking a variable n is equal to 10. Now when we take n is equal to 10, which is integer type, there will be inside the memory, there will a chunk of memory allocated where the value will be 10 and it will have a reference address for that chunk of memory. Suppose the address is hash 2003. Now when I'm calling, this time I am not passing n, rather I am passing address of n. Means actually we are passing hash 2008. So, and therefore in the called function, we are taking a variable add, which can hold address, star add, which can hold this. So add will be a variable which can hold address, but whose address? It's an integer address. Therefore, we are writing star add. And now, when I am writing star add, means actually we are referring to that location, which is its value at add. So it will become 20. So therefore, we are not making changes on the copy in a different location, but we are making the actual location. Therefore, whatever is changes is made in the formal parameter, that gets reflected in your actual value in case of call by reference. Another example where, as you have seen, the main we are taking two variable a 10, b 20, And in the function, instead of passing the value, we are passing the address of the address. And therefore, in the call function also, what we are doing, we are taking a temp variable, and we are in the temp variable, we are storing the value of I, not I star I, means actually the value which is stored in the location I, and we are making the swapping. So therefore, whatever swapping is done inside the function, that will get reflected in the label, because we are not working on the copy, but we are the actual reference. So therefore, after swapping, if we print the value, we'll get instead of 1020, we'll get 2010, which has been done inside the body of the function. So therefore, so remember, in case of call by value, the changes do not get reflected in your original actual environment, whereas in case of call by reference, change gets reflected in uh, uh, actual actual environment. So thus, in today's class, we have studied about how parameter can be functions here, and what is actual parameter, what is formal parameter, what is called by value, what is called by reference. So for the references are concerned, these are the references which we are following. If you have any query, you can always contact address.